Honourable Parakur Horomia.
Mr. Chair, I thought I'd take up, Mr. Chair, there have been some cutting remarks in relation to this bill, and certainly, as Dr. Cullen said, and I've heard the Minister say before, we did want to get to a better place, and we can concede in all humility that maybe we could have done better in our time, but we've got to this stage now and we need to confront those issues that are relevant to taking this forward. And Part 3 suggests a whole lot of matters and issues that need to be clarified. It has worried me at times, Mr. Chair, that some people have ripped off in extremes in relation to testing people's minds and manners by extreme statements, and I think nobody who thinks that this is about practices in Alice in Wonderland, or that Māoris don't know anything about customary rights and they have to hold their noses underwater, are sort of outrageous statements that we can do without. That outrage also is where I get a bit perturbed, because sitting outside in front of the hikoi on that day is etched in my mind, especially when some of your whānau are on the other side. And the challenges that were tossed at us in relation to not going through court or denying the access to court is something that now is being fudged, and the Māori Party, who went out at that time and professed to say that it was totally wrong because of that denial of access, is now supporting the same sort of stance. And I'm really interested in the fact that they are saying this is not the National Party bill, this is theirs. They are proud of it. And I tend to really wonder, at the end of the day, what is so proud in relation to this bill in the sense of where we're getting to at the moment. And the Minister's SOPs have been very, very interesting. He's been telling tales to my uncle Appy on me, on what I'm saying and whatever else. He's a real narc at times, and I take umbrage to that too. But anyway, on Part 3. And the purpose of this part is to set out the full extent. What I didn't support was the 500-page report being rushed through by the chair of the Select Committee and allowing no legal advice or legal content or direction by members of that board. That's what I object to. Certainly, the purpose of this part in relation to the participation in the conservation processes. And I wanted to say to the Minister that one of the issues in Part 3 that really does concern me is the mixture and the composition of the decision-making. There seems to be an illogical matrix of points of decision. You have the Minister of Conservation, the Minister of Environment, the Maoris sometimes, the court authorities, some of the ideology of the RMA, and it's crammed together. So I hope, Minister, that by the time we get to the end of this, we can decipher some of that and be more specific than Part 3 is starting to shore up to be. And I suppose there are a whole lot of issues, like in relation to the protected customary rights, and we've phrased this over a period of time, that has been exercised since 1840. Now, I would like to know how we are going to exercise that definition. Is it about some Māori kid running and jumping in the water like their ancestor did in 1840 and continuously having swum there, having dived underneath to see what's in the water, gone to get food? Is that enough? And then you go on, and then we go on into Part B, and it says continues to be exercised in a particular part of the common marine and coastal area in accordance with tikanga by the applicant group. And C says is not extinguished as a matter of law. All through these parts and down to Part 3, there is this real push about tikanga. What is interesting as you go through the parts and read it through is how tikanga is being defined and who is defining it. In some parts of Part 3, it is suggested that tikanga can be defined by the applicant group or the hapu or the iwi involved, or it can be determined by an end sanction of the Minister or Director General of Conservation, so on and so forth. So, and to to push that further, if you go on to 53.3, an applicant group, Mr. Chair.
One another call?
Yes, thanks.
Honourable Haramea.
Do another two if you don't mind, Mr. Chair. Is that right?
One at a time.
Okay, thank you. An applicant group does not need to have an interest in land in or abutting the specified part of the common marine and coastal area in order to establish protected customary rights. It was interesting what my learned colleague from the Tai Tukato, there are learned members of the Tai Tukato who know where their waka came from, who have a sincere belonging in the Tai Tukato, and I want a mihi to him. I want a mihi to him. Not like that one in the faraway land over there and that one there who rushed the report through the select committee, and I want to be thankful that my mokopuna is from North Auckland, from Tai Tukato, and there are decent members in this house from Tai Tukato, and that he knows where his waka came from, not inventing it like that member over there. And if we go to part 3, Mr. Chair, an applicant group does not need to have an interest in land in or abutting.
I just caution the member that the nature of the exchange you just got on was inferring that some people in this House were not decent. All members are honourable members.
I stand corrected, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Proceed.
Mr. Chair, I want to tell you about the waka, mātātua. One of the members with his fist raised in the air believes that the waka of mātātua only stayed there and lived there. The member on his left, their history says, no, this is very important, part 3, Simon. I want you to listen to this. You see, when you define tikanga and you define aspirations and determine what is right or wrong in Māori, you got to understand there may be 4 or 5 different versions, but they're all right. They're all right. Now, how's the court going to manage that? Because the bloke up there on the left, he would say that the mātātua waka rested in Tai Tukato, rested at Tai Tukato in the Hokianga, and it sits there. The bloke on his left would say that no, it is down by Whakatane or Portuguese. Now, they're both right. They're both right. How do you recognise that? So I want to get on to this land business in the sense of supporting the test. The contiguousness, that was a really strong reference in the 2004 bill, I hope it's still as important, because there's some shifty shaping in this where you're saying that the customary right doesn't necessarily have to be where you are living by the seashore or wherever else. It can be somewhere else. But one of the real key drivers in relation to recognising or simplifying people's rights and tuku iho is about the contiguousness of the land, the dry land, that they may have lived on or controlled over generations. Now, what they've done on it is a different issue. But they have inherited it, Minister. They have inherited it for one reason, through their whakapapa or their genealogical tie. Now, where is the court going to, or anybody else going to put that astray and test that? Because the strength to recognise a lot of that tuku iho or those rights are in that contiguousness, if those people have had that whenua. There is another part in here that in subsection 1 and 2 that the customary right is exercised in accordance with tikanga, and I want to make that point, that tikanga takes all sorts of forms and shape, and that there are alignments like the contiguousness of the land to the right that is trying to be defined in the water here. And so those who have a lot of land there should be recognised for that. And then the other thing is that it says a protected customary rights order or an agreement that applies to the customary rights group can be sort of subset or controlled by an imposition of the Minister of Conservation under Section 59. A protected customary rights group may do any of the following: delegate the rights conferred by a protected customary rights order or an agreement in accordance with tikanga. Not too sure what that means. Does that mean about where the mātātua waka maybe went to, could be, and I say that with a whole lot of respect, transfer a protected customary rights order or an agreement in accordance with tikanga. So again, Minister, how and who is defining tikanga in relation to that, in relation to those limitations? And in relation to 56, the limitations on exercise of protected customary rights does not include any right or title over the part of the common marine and coastal area where the protected customary right is exercised. So we've got this no people's part where nobody owns, but everybody reckons it's okay. And then you're saying that nobody can define or determine, Mr. Chair, one more time.